Good evening. Good evening. It's boy Travis here. I am starting us off today because our boy JP is actually working a concert, a 50 Cent and Busta Rhymes concert, if I'm not mistaken, and he'll be with us in about 10 minutes. Brandon Drumm just got back from football, and he will be joining any minute now. So right now, you got me. You got Travis. So first things first, appreciate you guys being here. Exciting times. It's always exciting, not only when we have great guests on like Brandon, but when good news has happened recently. Obviously, we've got recruiting wins in back-to-back days. And I'll be honest, like today, learning David Stone's timeline and learning a little bit more about Williams Nwaneri, including a timeline, that felt like a win. So, really, really exciting show. Before we get started, everybody go like the video. Like the video. You guys have been doing a good job. And you know, the likes have been going well, the subscriptions have been going well, and even the following on Twitter. It's been very nice. So while we wait for the others, Brandon should be on, like I said, any minute now. But let's talk about the commitment, because that's what probably is most fascinating for me. Elijah Thomas kind of came out of nowhere, right? I mean, he went on to say that, Brandon's in the green room. Indy's got to let him in. So once Indy lets in Brandon, or once JP lets in Brandon, we will have Brandon Drumm with us. But just the fact that it's that out of the blue. I mean, it was reported on OU Insider, of course, of how surprised Venables was. I mean, it caught a lot of us off guard. I know there was a lot of excitement after the Sooners Under the Stars event, and I didn't know that it would all of a sudden have two commitments in it already, but those guys are willing to shut it down. And I'm going to text JP right now to let Brandon in. But I'm going to read through some of your guys' comments while we're here. Oh, Elijah Thomas from the hometown, Mike Shacker, good old Shakota, Oklahoma. So you guys would know this. Is Carrie Underwood actually from Shakota? I had always heard that she claimed Shakota, but I think lives elsewhere, bought a bunch of land elsewhere now. But yeah, Chris Henson, love when kids commit like Elijah Thomas did today. Had no clue it was coming. Love getting surprises instead of typical making my commitment live at 4 p.m. on such and such day. Yeah, that's what's so cool about this, man, because we talk about it all the time on the show. You don't really get that surprise anymore, right? I mean, crystal balls and, future casts and, paid sites and discords. Like, it's all, you often know ahead of time when things are going to happen, sometimes down to the minute. But today, you're just refreshing timeline, boom. All of a sudden, Elijah Thomas, who being that highly ranked and being from Shakota, you know that he would be much higher if he was from the DFW or anything like that. Now we've got our guy, Brandon Drumm, co-publisher, OUinsider.com. And so, Brandon, walk us through kind of even just today, walk us through that Elijah Thomas commitment.
Oh, my God.
And what your initial reaction was.
I can't get this thing on right.
I know when the camera it gets confusing, right? Because it's
God.
Goes the wrong way.
Wrong way here. Wrong way. It still feels weird. All right. Yeah, Elijah.
You'll see me like every once in a while.
Okay, bro, you got way too much sun, homie.
Oh, I think no, I was just it's very warm in here.
You got your blush on right now? All right,
yeah,
cool.
Exactly. I might have gotten sun. I go walking, so I get a lot of sun. So update me on the Elijah Thomas recruitment, how it went down. Obviously a kid that would be probably ranked even higher if he were in the DFW or something like that.
Yeah.
But talk to me about how it all went down and kind of how you see that wide receiver class kind of unfolding, because you've already got 2 in the boat now, and you're not talking about guys like legacy Isaiah Mosey. You've got guys like Andrew Marsh and Adrian Wilson, just a bunch of random guys that want to be in this class. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So I was texting with somebody that was there yesterday at the Sooners Under the Stars, and they were, they were saying just how crazy the energy was and everything. And I said, well, I know there's one that's going to take place sometime in August, and I know that's going to take place 100%. And I was like, is there going to be anybody else? And they go, yeah, there should be somebody really soon. I said, okay, what are we at here? And they said, well, can't say anything to anybody. And I said, I won't say anything. And I guessed a name, and a name that I've heard is close is Jaden Ferguson multiple times, but it was no. And so I said, okay, it's got to be Elijah, right? And they just kind of exclamation pointed it. And at that point, I reached out to Elijah, and he said, yeah, at some point later on, we'll be doing some things. I called him, and right after he committed, like when he committed, we were talking on the phone, and he was giving me all these quotes and stuff like that. So I promised not to put in a crystal ball or future cast or whatever you want to call it at that point, because when it's a same day commitment, it just seems so wrong to do that. You're literally ruining the kid's moment, like especially if they're going to announce that day. So that was one of the stipulations for me to be able to have the quotes and all that type of stuff. So that's why we had the quotes up really quickly after and all that. But it essentially started with him walking in, and Emmett Jones and his assistant, wide receiver assistant, recruiting assistant, walked up and said, "Are you ready? When are you going to be ready to commit?" and all that type of stuff. And Elijah said, I stopped for a second and I thought, and you go, how about now? And they thought he was joking. And he goes, no, I'm serious. How about now? Oh. And so he had to go one by one telling. And then he said when he told BV was just shocked because nobody really saw it coming. He's such an unassuming presence as far as just his stature and just his personality. But I tell you this, he's a great interview, by the way. Fantastic. He will give you really good quotes. He's super mature for his age and understands kind of the gravitas of everything that surrounds where he is in the recruitment, to the point that I go, okay, so what's your plans? And his literal quote was, well, my plan is to win state and to get as many guys in 2025 to join me as I can. And I said, who is that be? He goes, they tell me, I go and I recruit. That's the way it is. I said, you work with Kevin Sperry? He goes, already on it. They tell me where to recruit, I go recruit. And it's that simple. Like, he's a very matter-of-fact kid. And he's going to be, and he fits the program. He hates the recruiting process, hates it. And that's why he goes, I grew up, he said, Oklahoma wanted me. I wanted Oklahoma. That is my home. The state is my home. And that's where I've always wanted to be. So why waste time? That's literally what he said. And I was like, wow, like that is different. You don't see a lot of that. That 25 class already has 4 dudes that have said that exact same thing. Why am I wasting time? I know where I want to be. That's rare. That's rare at this day and age.
I talked about it a little bit on radio today. I did 30 minutes from 11:30 to noon, and it was like, I feel like in the Lincoln Riley era, everybody was kind of treated as more like even like a mercenary, right? Like, you were getting guys from all over because they wanted to play in Lincoln Riley's offense. They didn't want to play for Oklahoma a lot of the times, especially that 2023 class that had the Mekhi Lemon and Trayon Webb and Brandon Ennis and Malachi Nelson and all these guys. Like those guys were there for Lincoln Riley. Like, and so when he goes, they go. I feel like now because it's so built into the culture and these kids want to play for Oklahoma. I mean, don't get me wrong. They want to play for Brent Venables. Don't get that twisted. But it's not I'm just a mercenary. I don't even like Oklahoma, but I'm going to go there because selfishly that's what's best for me in my NFL future. Like this very much seems like, no, we love Oklahoma and this is where we're going to be. So let's shut it down. And I think that's what's so fascinating because, I mean, even even Sperry is so active on Twitter. I mean, we had talked about Michael Hawkins being a peer recruiter and his dad being a peer recruiter and all this, which he is. But good Lord, Kevin Sperry he moved here for God's sakes. So he could be closer to the, facilities and be at these recruiting events and everything like that. Like, so it's his buy-in and his ability to just, take pictures with the sign, get the be involved in naming the class and all that kind of thing. Like it's exactly what you want out of your quarterback.
Yeah. No, you do. He is and it's not just him, it's his parents. They're so bought into being Oklahoma Sooners. And I'll tell you, they were bought in the first time. I may have never told this story publicly before. So we're at camp, not this past year's summer's camp, the year before. And Kevin Sperry shows up and he goes to camp at Oklahoma. And this is right before he goes to Florida State, goes to Tennessee and all these other places and camps. And he's so good that they offer him on the spot. Well, at Oklahoma, he was so good. And yet Oklahoma had a few other guys in mind that they were looking at a little bit and they were trying to fill out 2025. But I remember talking to Kevin Sperry Sr. and we're decent friends just because of our kids. Like we train with the same people and all that type of stuff. So we get to be around each other quite a bit. So there's a comfortability between both of us that we can sit there and have a conversation and it not be just, it's not going to leave the two of us usually. And so I've never said this publicly before, but he looked at me and he goes, this is where our heart's at. And I said, but they haven't offered. He goes, but when they do. And he would very matter of fact, but when they do, they had the confidence then, knowing that A&M was just about to offer, knowing that Florida State would offer soon down the line, knowing that Tennessee, but they were set. They didn't care. They went and did all that because they wanted to prove how good Kevin was. And they did so. And then number two, they just wanted to be a little open to the process a little bit, even though Kevin hated it. He hated it from the start as far as his process. Now, other people's processes, he doesn't have a problem jumping in there and telling them where they need to go, and that's to join him. But it was just kind of Drumm, this is where our heart's at. We love Lebby to the point that Gabby, when she showed up for the first time and they were taking her through places at Oklahoma on their first unofficial visit, she was brought to tears emotionally because she knew that's where she and Kevin Sr. and Kevin Jr. wanted to be so very badly. So when they were in Austin, when he got the offer, they were literally at I think it was either the Elite 11 or the 7-on-7 or something like that down in Austin. They're up in the hotel. And when he says, you need to call Oklahoma. And he gets that. Kevin commits on the spot. People don't know, Kevin committed on the spot. Everybody thinks that he waited a few days and no, committed right then and there. And so his dad calls me right after they do it. He's like, hey, and that's when we did that video interview a day later before he announced. But they were so hyped as a family that they wanted to wait a few days after the offer and after they committed because they just wanted to enjoy it for themselves, which I thought was really cool. You don't get a lot of that. There's a lot of people that end up being jaded by the end of their process because they let it get to that point. David Stone's very jaded right now with the process. Told me flat out, I am sick of all of this. Now, he has some people around him that enjoy it a little bit more for obvious reasons, but he is ready for it to be over with. He's tired of all the calls. He's tired of all the texts. He's ready to be done with it. So that's when last week when I reported it's going to be August 26th. Like everything's trending for an August 26th national television. He'll be on ESPN2 facing obviously at the Battle of the Beach. I can't remember the high school's name, but it's obviously a prestigious high school. But yeah, he wanted to do it his own way, and that was his way of doing it. He told me today that the reason why it took him so long to go public with it was because it was just finalized, I guess, with ESPN today. He got it approved today that he would be able to announce during that game, before in the halftime or after. I'm assuming it's going to be before. So, yeah, that's a really cool deal for him. But that's something that he's been working on for the past month. Like that was the date that he had circled in his mind. Originally, it was August 1st, but when he got approached and asked to do it on August 26th, he was all for that.
I love that. We welcome JP to the show. What's up, JP?
What's up,
good,
buddy?
y'all? What's good, Brandon? Sorry,
How you
I'm
doing?
a little late. I had a thing that we were doing for our school, raising some funds. So we were at a concert. Should be sitting Buster Rhymes selling some food and different stuff like that. So I'm still here. They're cleaning up. I was told I can't leave until they say I can, but they let me come over here and at least hop on. So I'm here until further notice, but man, sounds like we're having a great conversation about the 25 class, and can't wait to see where it continues to go for sure. Sorry about that malfunction earlier. We talked about Jordy Ball a long time ago. That was my fault, slipping the hand.
Ha!
What happened?
I was wondering. It said "Thank you, Jordy" underneath on the screen, and I was like, "What are we
For
thanking
like
Jordy for?" We
1 minute.
already did
I
that.
know. For
Can't
like
you
1
can't?
minute.
Hey, Natties. Thank you for back-to-back Natties. That's what you can thank.
Right. It's like, but we've already given our thanks. We're moving on. So, Brandon, talk to me a little bit about we touched on the 25 class a little bit and how it could be special. Like, everybody thinks when you talk, okay, is this a class that's off to a good start? It's number 3 right now, obviously, with only 4 commits, but like, everybody wants the 5 stars, right? That's how they judge the classes, right? They're like, hey, we had 3 5 stars in 2023. We might have 3 5 stars in 2024. I think we will. Who are the big high level prospects that we're looking at in the 2025 class? Michael Fasusi, I imagine, is one because he's a 5 star.
Yeah. Now you're gonna make me pull out my handy dandy 2025 offer list as I
Good.
out. So
Good.
What we like to see.
Well, I mean, I can't remember, man. Like when you're covering, that's what people don't get. They're like, they'll say names that are on. People ask me questions, names that are on their mind, and I literally, Parker and I both will. Sometimes we've talked about this. Is like, okay, what class is that? Because when you're covering 25, 24, 25, 26, and now even 27, like all these names start jumbling together and they get kind of confusing. But I think you first and foremost, I think you got to start out with running back. Look, DeMarco's going to get his guys. And I would imagine if they take another running back or land Caden Durham in the 2024 class, I'd imagine there's only one running back in 25. I can't imagine them taking 2. Now, granted, he has said, I want to take 2 in every class before. But you have Xavier Robinson. And do I think Xavier Robinson is a true running back? I do not. I think he's a true running back in the sense that Dimitri Flowers was a true running back. The sense that is, I'm trying to think of, help me out here, the H-backs over the years here.
Trey Millard.
Mikey Henderson.
Trey Millard, Mikey Henderson, those types. I think he's a running back in the sense they were running back. So a lot of versatility, a lot of things that they can do. Whether you want to put him at the sniffer back, which is essentially what now they call the H-back, is now sniffer back in Oklahoma's new Bryles-esque offense. And then you obviously have Taylor Tatum, right? So if you get Caden Durham on top of that, you have a hybrid guy, and then you've got two really versatile downhill runners that can be, one's a little thicker than the other, change of pace, but they both have elite speed. Durham probably a little bit more elite just because he's that dude in track. But I would assume you only take one, but I didn't think they would take three this year, and it looks like they're going to try to do so. So you got to start with DeAndre Ryden, Tiger Ryden out of DeSoto. Just visited. And look, everybody hears the words DeSoto, Texas, and you automatically think going to UT, going to A&M, going to Texas Tech, not going to Oklahoma. And with the hire of Emmett Jones, I think that's going to change. I mean, you got Cel Reyes, a 4-star safety out of 2025 class that visited Oklahoma this weekend. You have Tiger Ryden, the running back, 4-star running back out of DeSoto that visited Oklahoma this weekend. And Tyler is a top tier guy. Like, he's fast. He's powerful. He's a little bit, he's thicker than what you think. So I think I would start there. Torrey Blaylock out of Ashtasita High School in Humble, Texas is just a straight burner. And so his dad's a speed trainer as well, 7-year NFL pro, Corey Blaylock. So
he's got two brothers that are in college too, right? Two safeties.
Yep. And so there's a lot of that. Riley Wormley, who was originally at Colleyville Heritage and now is at South Lake Carroll. And he grew up a Texas fan, but he's been to Oklahoma more than he's been to Texas, and apparently closer to Oklahoma as far as not just logistically, but he's closer to DeMarco Murray than he is almost any recruit or any coach, excuse me. So those were the three that, when you look at running back that you think off the top of your head, you're like, okay, yeah. And then I guess you got to say Jordan Davison out of Mater Dei. But the chances of you getting them or in UCLA and USC not are slim to none. So don't hold your breath. I think and I don't hate me for saying this, OU fans, if Lincoln Riley was still at Oklahoma and you had stuck with all those Mater Dei cats that were in that 23 class, they showed up to Oklahoma, there's a good chance you end up with that cat.
Well, first of all, they're all Los Alamitos, but I get your point.
Whoa. Mater Dei. No. The scat back. No.
Ruben. Or not
No.
Ruben.
No, I went blank.
God, that's gonna bug. It's they switched him to wide receiver now. He was a running
back. He plays
back.
everywhere. He plays
Raleigh.
Yeah, Raleigh Brown.
Yeah, no, Raleigh. Yeah.
But like 3 of them played at Los Alamitos, though.
Right, but they were all from that area. I'm saying, like, you got Raleigh, then you got the Los Alamitos guys.
But if you can count on Lincoln Riley to do one thing, it's to ignore a running back in his own backyard and go for somebody else in with. So
and then miss out on a 5-star. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, theoretically, we got options. So that's interesting.
Yeah, Jonah Williams is another guy. He's an athlete. And when I say athlete, like, you're talking about a guy that could end up being drafted in Major League Baseball. So you're starting to see a trend, right? These Major League Baseball / college football guys, and they generally end up in Norman. And this kid is a 5-star. So he's been to Oklahoma 3 times in the last 3 months. He's actually at Texas today after visiting Oklahoma. And he's supposed to call me tomorrow morning after he gets some of the visits. And we'll have we've been texting and all that. Oklahoma hit it out of the ballpark there. But we're going to have a long conversation and see where things stand. Obviously, you gotta stay with your in-state guys, right? You got to land C.J. Nixon. You got to land Jaden Nickens. You've landed Elijah Thomas. You've landed Kevin Sperry. Now you've got to go make sure Tristan Haynes, who visited Oklahoma, Trinae Washington,
Marcus James.
Yeah, Marcus James. Like, you've got to land that 6 or 7 top guys that are going to be all potential top 300 players in the country. You got to have those guys on your team. You lock that down, and it makes it a lot easier to recruit. It's kind of like 2017 and 2018. Oklahoma got really hot during those two cycles. And again, in 2022, they got really hot because a third of their team, the class was from the state of Oklahoma in those three classes. So when you do that, you're in a really good shape. Andrew Marsh is a good one. Tanu Hines. Obviously, you got Grayson Harris. Deshaun Brame, I think Oklahoma's tight end, 4-star tight end, probably the number one tight end in the country in 2025. Again, Kansas guy from Derby, literally across the border. He's like 7 minutes from the state border, 15 minutes or something like that from the state border of Oklahoma. So he's down in Oklahoma quite a bit. He really, really likes Oklahoma a lot, has ties to Brent Venables, has ties to obviously several of the staffers. So there's a reason why Oklahoma has positioned themselves really well. And I think landing Devon Mitchell has opened some doors for Joe John Finley that may not have been open previously. Like landing a guy of that stature is huge. And it looks like we lost JP. And we've talked about all the in-state guys. I think on the offensive line, you got to talk about Lamont Rogers. And I think it starts with Lamont Rogers and Michael Fasusi. And I think it ends right there. Obviously, you want, I think, Ty Haywood. I think you would take him. I think you would take Jonte Newman out of Bridgeland, Texas. I think you would take, trying to think of, oh my gosh, the big kid out of Melissa that OU offered. Oh my gosh, I just went blank. He was there again yesterday. That's more Parker's doing there, but
Owen something.
Owen Hollenbeck. Owen Hollenbeck. Yeah. Owen Hollenbeck. So I think those four guys, if you can land three of the four, two of those four, you're in business when it comes to offensive line. I think Oklahoma's in great standing with Michael Fasusi. He's got Jaden Hardy's in his ear all the time. Kevin Sperry, literally, he came up the 25th. Sooners on the Stars is on the 26th. Fasusi comes up on the 25th and spends all day in Norman. Sperry comes down and spends the whole day with him to make sure he has somebody from his class in his ear the whole time he's on campus. And that was one of the reasons why they moved to Oklahoma was, hey, look, we're going to get our butt kicked where we're living now. Let's move to Oklahoma. Let's get our kids settled in a predominantly powerful program and allow ourselves to also help recruit the University of Oklahoma. And that's why the Sperrys did it. They have a chance to be one of the most beloved families of all time, honestly. In-state kid now, and they are all OU recruiting. Defensive line wise, well, obviously edge. You got Alex Shieldknight from Wagner, and you've got CJ Nixon. I think you land those two, you're set at edge. But Oklahoma, Jaden Woods was in town this yesterday. 4-star out of Kansas City, Shawnee, Kansas area, Mill Valley, I think the high school. Hey, Chavis is a bad dude on the recruiting trail. So I think he would take 3, maybe 4 next year, just because obviously you have a chance to lose quite a bit because you never know, right? Trace Ford could be his last year in 2024. Obviously Ethan Downs, Grimes, a lot of those guys will be gone after 2024. So you got openings, you got to fill them. You might as well fill them with top-tier freshmen and a couple of transfers. So Jaden Woods obviously would be one of those guys that I think Oklahoma would like to. Max Granville. And then obviously Gus Cordova, who I think Oklahoma is far and away the leader. And I think within the next 30, 40 days, he might have a decision made. That's just my guess. Just throwing it out there. And then I said Alex Shieldknight. Landon Rink is another guy. He's a Texas legacy, right? But he plays he's kind of a bigger interior guy. He's already 270, 280 pounds. I think he's going to be more of an interior defensive line guy. And he's been up to Oklahoma twice already. I don't think he's sold on Texas 100%, which is interesting. Well, this staff has already proven that they can open the doors to guys that they shouldn't have open with. Or obviously, right? Colton Bassick, they had no business with that. Look at Zena Amozalu. He's going to be there this weekend. Instead of Texas, instead of A&M, he's in Norman. At least that's the plan right now. I mean, they're building relationships and making it very hard for Oklahoma to be told no. And that's where it starts, right?
All you gotta do, Brandon, is win.
Show you the money.
But you gotta win. You gotta put it together on the field too.
That's fair. That's fair. A guy that people aren't talking about a lot that got an offer at defensive tackle about 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, is Isaiah Campbell out of, I think, Durham, North Carolina, Southern High School or whatever in Durham, North Carolina. And Chavis and the head coach there I think they grew up together or at least played together in some form or fashion. I think it was at trying to think of the military academy, Hargrave Military Academy. They played together and became really good friends. So Oklahoma has an in there. And not a lot of people are talking about it, but I've talked to Isaiah Campbell a couple of times, and Oklahoma is going to get a visit out of that kid. Like Bates, Chavis have already started doing their thing. The same thing they've done with every other defensive lineman, like Dominic McKinley, that they had no business being near the top with. They're doing the same thing here. So that's one to watch. I would sit here and tell you that, well, Juju Marks out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Kansas, Lenexa, Kansas, not in Miami,
Not in Florida.
different guy. He's going to be visiting Notre Dame this weekend, but he visited Oklahoma yesterday and will be back for Oklahoma's first home game. Oklahoma did a really good job there. Xavier Ukpunu out of Denton Guyer, obviously the Denton Guyer connection, right? Especially if Eli Bowen ends up, committing in or a little after the party in the palace after he visits there. So that's another guy at the defensive line that I think Oklahoma, you already got Kamari Moore. So you're looking really good there. And then linebacker, it sounds like Christian James, Oklahoma is in a really, really good spot for Christian James. It sounds like Oklahoma's in a really good spot for Christian Thatcher. The Christian brothers could literally be Oklahoma's linebacker core in 2025, along with Marcus James out of Carl Albert, who I think has a chance to be a top 75 player, top 50 player in that class when it's all said and done. And look, don't throw away Weston Port and don't throw away Noah McHale, because Oklahoma's done fantastic jobs there. One out of both of them, obviously, off from the West Coast in California. So they've done really good. And Kelvin Riggins was there again yesterday, which was shocking. Everybody thought
like 3 times or something like that.
Yeah, it's a third time in 3 months he's been to Norman. And he told me, I'll never forget. I said, we're at the Rivals camp in March or April, or no, it was May. It was very beginning of May, like May 5th. And he told me, he's like, yeah, I'm going back to Oklahoma before the spring's up. And he did. And I said, so what do you think of Oklahoma? He goes, it's A&M for me. And then it's kind of Tennessee, Oklahoma. And that's really where his head was at then. But I think the longer Oklahoma keeps digging away and building momentum on the recruiting trail, the more his eyes kind of perk up. And let's not forget, he's a South Oak Cliff guy. And Emma Jones is a South Oak Cliff guy. Oklahoma's going to get their way.
He's the South Oak Cliff guy.
Yeah, Oklahoma's going to get their way with somebody somehow from that school at some point. And it might just start with Kelvin Riggins, who might have been sculpted out of a freaking G.I. Joe pack, one of those you remember the rubber wrestlers that were like all jacked up in the 80s that you would stick in a big ring and you could sit there and play and stuff like that. He looks like one of those dude. He is literally chiseled out of rock. It's ridiculous. I challenge all you guys to go Google him. Like, it's ridiculous, by the way. And then finally, obviously at cornerback and safety, Oklahoma would love to get Devin Sanchez. They would love it. Just don't see it. Like that's such a long shot. So you got to stick to what you can. And I think Tristan Haynes is a really good player. He's a 4-star out of Carl Albert, right? I think Oklahoma cleans house at Carl Albert. I really do. And if they do, guess what? That's 3 4-stars and a 3-star. Not bad, right? That team is ridiculous. And then you got Dejon Petaway, who is the cousin to Jaquaze Petaway at Katy Paytow, who David Hicks's dad is the head coach there. And David Hicks and Todd Bates, David Hicks Sr. and Todd Bates are still really, really good friends. I know people want to sit there and say, oh, but what he did to Oklahoma, yeah, that sucked. But you don't throw away relationships at a school that's that talented. That's a bad move. And I think Oklahoma's done a really good job recruiting there with him as well. And then obviously Malik Hawkins is going to be a really good guy. Yeah, and there you go. He's insane, man. Dude's insane. And it's even crazier in person, by the way. Safety, obviously, we've already talked about it. Colin Peacock is another guy that I think he'll probably end up a Sooner when it's all said and done out of Gunter, Texas. He just fits that mold. Obviously, everybody's going to go, oh, there it is, a white guy. Got to have white safeties. Got to have white linebackers. Brent Venables. That's fair. It's a fair judgment on that. But he's really good. He's a 4.4 guy. Laser timed. So, like, he can fly. And he's really good. So, obviously, Sel Reyes out of DeSoto. And then we've talked about all the other guys at safety. Jonah Williams, obviously, is going to be their safety. So, that kind of, I think that's probably their top 20 guys, 20, 30 guys that they're looking for right now. And then from that point on, it's going to change a lot between now and then, though. That's just early on, though. Sorry if I rambled. I was just naming all the players you asked. I went total detail.
No, and that's what I'm going to go back and watch it and take my own notes just to be like, okay, we got this, because it is funny you say, hey, that's going to change a lot because give me 3 recruits in the 2024 class that this time a year ago you were like Peyton Pierce for one, being like, oh, that's a guy that's going to be in the class. Who all?
Everybody thought that, right?
Right. Some people in the chat still think it, but
I'm not going to sit there and piss in the Cheerios because he told Parker and I it was the razor thin thing. It was the hardest thing he ever did.
Right.
So if Oklahoma goes out and wins, that would not shock me one bit.
Right. But go back a year ago, and who would have been on that list that, for whatever reason, whether it was they fell, out of favor with the coaches, they just didn't click, maybe Tavani Mizell, or is there
Bryant Wesco?
Yeah. But that we were still going for him hard. Like,
right, but like you were asking me today who I thought would have been in the class, he would have been one of the people I would have thought would have been in class. Both parent? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Dude's a legacy.
Right. Well, good thing Emmett just, recruited like 11 receivers to fill his spot. So
11 really good receivers. Yeah, he's pretty good at that recruiting thing, I hear.
He's on fire.
Yeah, that might have been one of the best, like, just because of his connections in Texas. It offsets a lot of what Joey McGuire does at Texas Tech and a lot of what the Texas, whatever they call it, director of Texas high school Texas recruiting at the University of Texas in A&M. It offsets that tenfold because outside of Joey McGuire, there's nobody more respected than Emmett Jones through the Texas high school football ranks because he's one of them. They are a fraternity. But I guess if you're asking me who I thought would have been in the class, I guess James Peoples would have been one of them, obviously. Oklahoma, Stacey Gage would have been one of them.
Stacey Gage is a good one.
Mm-hmm. And he just fell off because I think Oklahoma gave him every opportunity. There is actually some rumors that he tried to commit and Oklahoma was like, nah, we got other guys we're going to go get. weren't good with Tater Tatum and Caden Durham and all those guys. I can't confirm that one way or the other, but there's some rumors to that back at least a few months ago taking place. Trying to look at offensive line, who I would have guessed. You know what? Michael Weenie. I love saying that name. UINI. Yeah, no, out of Copers Cove, Texas. Oklahoma was in a really good spot early on for him. And I think they just faded. Max Anderson would have been another one that I would have predicted to be in the class. His brother is a long-standing player. The family loves Oklahoma. He loves it, even though he doesn't play. And obviously, we're talking about Nate Anderson, the junior offensive lineman out of Frisco Leedy.
Do you think that if Nate played more, it would have changed that?
Yes. Unfortunately for him, he has a guy by the name of Andrew Raymond in front of him. It's hard to beat. That's hard to beat. And then every time you think he got a chance to play, Oklahoma brings in some all Pac-12 offensive guard, whether it was Chris Murray or trying to think of the kid that's there now, McKay McGuire. Yeah, like both of them were all Pac-12 guys. Like that sucks for him. Like that stinks. So just bad luck, bad timing. I guess another guy I would have guessed. Man, that's hard. Casey Poe. I would have guessed Oklahoma was far and away the leader for the longest time. Alabama did their thing, and they came in and just whooped it. And I think if you would have told me back this time last year that Oklahoma offered Harrison Utley, I would have never believed that he turned down Oklahoma to stay with Kansas. Would have never believed it. I would have said you're full of crap. But to that kid's credit and to his family's credit, they genuinely are. It's not like a grudge being held. They're still going to go to OU games this year. No grudge.
Right. That was a really cool edit that he put out talking about, hey, you know what? I appreciate it. It's my dream offer, but I told him, I really believe in this, and it was awesome.
Bro, we are podcasting, and I'm at the beach house in Outer Banks, and Parker literally just gets done saying there's no way he doesn't flip to Oklahoma. And I look down, and Harrison has sent me like this 3-page long explanation of why OU offered and he's not going to take it. And it was so well written. It wasn't scripted. Like he just freestyled it to me. And I was like, Parker, I don't think that's going to happen, man. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I had to tell him when we stopped recording why I said that. Because it sounded so stupid even to me when I said the words coming out of my mouth. Harrison Utley's not gonna be a Sooner. What? That sounds really stupid. The kid grew up. That's all he wanted to do, and he's gonna go to Kansas. Good for them. But back to the subject. I mean, on defense, I don't know that there's anybody like crazy that you sit there today and you're like, oh, this is who I thought would have been in the class, and they're not now. Like, I'm trying to think. I guess Joseph Jonah, just because Oklahoma was so much a leader for so long until his dream school decided to come play ball. And then it was over.
Yeah, that's kind of an unfortunate.
Zadavian Sims would have been one, by the way.
Right. But that's kind of an unfortunate reality, and we can big bank people too at the time. But it's like, oh, if you recruit somebody good enough, then every school is going to want them. Like you talk about Georgia being his dream school. Like we don't necessarily theoretically we would like to recruit kids that Georgia wants badly, anyways. I mean, you look like Nwaneri and a David Stone, and those like they would love to have those players, but that's the kind of guy that we need to land, because that's why I really like like Devon Mitchell. We were going up against Miami and Alabama. With Nwaneri, we're going up against Georgia. With Stone, we're going up against everybody, right? Like, I mean, it's just you got to beat those schools, and that's what's so interesting to me is, people talk about, are we going to be SEC ready? Are we going to be this, that? Well, who do you think we're beating out for these recruits? If you continue to beat out the top teams in the country, then eventually, with the right coaching, you become one of the best teams in the country. That's just simply how it works.
Yeah, and I got a name for you. Kind of stings a little bit if you're an Oklahoma fan. Jordan Johnson-Rubel. That dude loved Oklahoma. So
I met him in Vegas at OT7 with Parker. He loved it.
All he ever wanted to do was play at Oklahoma. Like, that's what he wanted to do. But last year's team, he told me flat out, he goes, if they would have just had a pulse of a defense, he goes, I would have given them more of a chance. He goes, I just don't want to go somewhere and it just be just crap on defense. And he trusts Brent Venables.
Yeah, he went to Texas.
Yeah, and he went to Texas. So that was Texas kind of in his ear doing their thing. They did a really good job of extenuating how bad they beat them in the Red River rivalry. And they always leave out, I'm sure, some facts of they didn't have a quarterback. They played a running back and a tight end at quarterback. And that Oklahoma was inside the 10, 4 times and got stalled out or penalty to move them back out. Sorry. I know, PTSD.
Jeez.
But at safety, there's nobody. I guess Corey and Gibson would have been the one guy from Lancaster.
That's what's been interesting with that because,
Aaron Flowers.
Right.
Yep. Aaron Flowers.
But whenever Hunter Modden decommitted, everybody was like, we've got plenty of guys at corner and wide receiver, that are above him, blah, blah, blah. We've got guys like Selman Bridges and Corey and Gibson that are going to be announcing soon. So, well, both of those guys went other places now. So where do you think Texas's class ranks by the end of this cycle?
Ooh.
Because they've still got some dudes out there. I mean, they've got shots with Ryan Wingo, obviously, and Kobe Black and Colin Simmons and those kind of guys. But
here's the thing: is Simmons may end up at LSU,
right?
I don't know. My gut says Texas at the end of the day, right? Because Alex January is going there, and they're really close. Wingo. I mean, I actually think Texas probably ends up with Wingo, to be honest with you. Kobe Black, A&M. Yeah, they're in a really good spot for him.
Wow.
No, I think Texas ends up with him, but I think it's not a foregone conclusion. I think TJ Rushing is doing a damn good job recruiting him right now. So they're trying really hard. I just think for A&M, it's getting harder and harder because they did so well on the recruiting trail after such a subpar season, and then they followed it up with another subpar season. And then now they're just struggling. Like, they're just struggling because hype can last for a while. But then it's like, okay, what have you done for me lately? And now is A&M going to buy Jimbo's contract out if he goes 7-5? Because I think they will. I think that school has so much money. And this is why they keep screwing up, because they're not patient. And I get that Jimbo's been there, since 16, 17? When was it? 18. 2018 was first year, right? 2018? 2017?
That sounds about right. 2018 sounds about right.
Right. I can't remember the exact date, but point is that he's in like year 5, 6, 7, something like that. And they're still doing the same BS. Still just treading water. They did really good during the 2020 whenever they played dudes that were all COVIDed out and had like their 5th stringers in there, and they went 9-1. They had the luckiest run ever. They played a team in North Carolina at the end of the season that only had like 40 dudes playing in that bowl game due to COVID, right? and they about lost the damn game. North Carolina got so tired, no depth. Fourth quarter, they were able to do what they wanted to in the last quarter. But it was close. Everybody was like, how are they doing this? They lost a couple of guys set out because the NFL draft. And then other people had COVID or injured or whatnot. And they're sitting there neck and neck with A&M and beating them at one point. The culture down there, and I've talked to so many people about that place, it's just toxic sometimes. Some people will vouch for it. They will. But others will sit there and tell you once they go down there and they talk to people on the team and they're like, yeah, they're telling us like it's bad. So, and I'll say this. You don't ever hear people talk negatively about the DBs are always happy. It seems like the two defensive backs coach there do really well. And I'm a big TJ Rushing fan, biased, and I'll sit there and tell you that I'm biased. I've known him for 20 years. So, but you don't see a lot of people just dipping out on him. And he continues to recruit at a high level. Why is that? Why are all these other positions struggling? And yet he is nailing it. And I'm not going to sit there and say they're not going to have a top 10 recruiting class. They're A&M. They're probably going to end up with a top 10 recruiting class.
What did they finish with last year?
I think it was 13 or 14.
Spent all their money on 2022.
I think that's kind of what I was told was it was kind of like, dude, we've already spent this and you didn't win. Win with what you've already got and we'll start rolling it out again. They're 11th right now, which is pretty good class. They're above Oklahoma. But they've got,
but with how many commits?
More commit. Yeah, they got more commits than Oklahoma. What was it last year? What was their ranking last year? 14. Pretty good average, though. I'm not gonna lie. Pretty good average.
Yeah,
3.74.
Yeah, they took a big class in 2022 to get up to that 330 mark. But let's talk a little bit. We got, we're trying to keep it to an hour, especially with the late start. Talk to us a little bit about flip a coin, Nwaneri or Stone. Go with Stone. Talk to me a little bit about, how you felt about the announcement about, I want to go to A&M, I want to go to Bama, I want to do this, I want to do that. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
So what's funny is when you were talking about Kevin Sperry saying that he wanted to come to the visits, be on the visits with people. I mean, David Stone
has done that.
Came to Jaden Jackson's visit. He was FaceTiming with Michael Patterson McDonald when he got the offer. Like, doing that kind of stuff, like, do you ever sit back and think, man, I wish Stone would have been one of the first commits because we would have been able to get anybody and everybody we wanted on the defense?
I don't think like that because I can't, just because of my job. It would have been great for business. I would have been awesome. But the suspense is also really cool for our business, obviously. But I hate when, and I'm going to say this, fans, I hate it when y'all don't get your way. I do. I hate it for you all. Mainly because our board becomes, excuse my language, a shit show. And it just does. Everybody takes their stuff out on everybody. And Parker and I are sitting there dodging bullets left and right. You guys got it wrong, blah, blah. Okay, fair enough. We may have gotten it wrong, but we didn't see it coming, and we didn't see the 11th hour check clearing either from whoever they committed to. So,
and you guys are only as good as only as good as what you're told. I mean, you look back at Tristan Lee.
Just go back, not even further. You can go back to this Davian Sims situation.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
looked me in the eye and said he was going to Oklahoma 2 days before.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like, people are like, well, you guys can't be that naive. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to go through life assuming everybody's lying to my face. Like that is a
Yeah,
miserable existence. Miserable existence. So like you guys are as good as your sources, and you know, I get called, like I said, I get called a sunshine pumper a lot. And it's like, yeah, I'm optimistic. Like the people that hop in there, like 3-star you, oh, you know, somebody's like, ooh, big recruit coming up. Oh, I bet it's another 3-star. Like, God, go outside, touch grass. But
I mean, I get it. They have every right to be jaded, though. Like, and I told somebody the other day, like, or I told somebody today, they're like, hey, you know, you got the David Stone stuff right. If somebody's gonna bash you, they need to prop you up. I said, I mean, he's to prop me up. It's my job. So if I get bashed for missing, that's part of the job. Nobody needs to tell me, good job, you got it right. Well, my job is to be correct on the information. So I don't take it to heart. Now I'll snip back every now and then at somebody just because I'm feisty like that. But it is what it is. Like, whatever. I mean, but I feel for the OU fans. Like, I want you all to have the joy of David Stone and Williams Nwaneri to end up in the class. I want you to feel that same way that you felt when Jaden Jackson surprised everybody and ended up at Oklahoma. That was a good surprise for you guys. And I think it helped alleviate some of the, oh man, we're going to suck, to land a top tier D lineman like that. Like, when you talk to everybody, I'm telling everybody by the end of this cycle, that kid might be top 100. Might be top 100. He's not the tallest, he's just really heavy-handed, has really excellent feet for somebody his size, and he's just a force on the interior. He makes it so easy for David Stone. And David will tell you that, like, he is better because Jaden Jackson allows him to be one-on-one with everybody and not be double and triple teamed. And so that was a good get. I don't want OU fans to underestimate that get, but I also think it helped Oklahoma fans, at least in the short term, feel like, okay, now we're playing with the big boys, right? Speaking as an OU fan, we're playing with the big boys. We just beat out Miami, Ohio State, and Texas for them. All right, now let's go beat out Michigan State. Let's go beat out Miami, and let's go beat out Texas A&M and Oregon for David Stone, which is such a random batch of teams, mind you. Just want to throw that part out there. Texas A&M, Michigan State, Oregon, Oklahoma, Miami, Florida. Very random.
Florida fans were like, "What are we doing on this edit? We don't belong in here." Like they were commenting on it. They're like, "Don't put us
he's
on
visited there like twice." So,
but that's what I'm saying. Like people are like, "Don't put us on here. We don't want people to see like, oh, committed over Florida. Like, don't put us on here. Just forget us. Just go
I think
somewhere else."
A&M feels the same way. As a matter of fact, I talked to some people down there, and they were like literally that are part of that recruiting, and they're like, "It's not coming to A&M. Like, what are we doing here?" So
right.
you watch, they'll probably buy him at the, but.
Well, and I want to get into that
right,
too. What's
just joking, like David Hicks all over again. No, I think he's going to be a Sooner. I do. I think he's going to be a Sooner.
Right. One, what's interesting is you brought that up. If they're going to buy him, like I think what encouraged a lot of OU fans is like Jaden Jackson. It had been rumored that NIL was going to play a factor, as it does with a lot of people, and it turned on its head, and we ended up getting him. I think that signified to a lot of people, like, hey, OU is spending, so now we might really be cooking. So I mean, we've been on a heater. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, the news comes out that Tennessee, and I believe even Georgia didn't have an NIL package for him that wasn't as robust as ours was. And when people hear $8 million for Nico, they're thinking, wait a minute, Tennessee? We outbid Tennessee? How does that work? So I think a lot of people are getting encouraged by that, as well as kind of Jaden Jackson seemed to be the signal. Maybe a little bit of Devon Mitchell too, that, hey, these guys are playing the game.
Yeah, I think they're playing the game. I mean,
you have to.
And I'm reading Jason on here. I really appreciate you being on here, man. Like, like I'm seeing a lot of the same names that pop up on our stuff. It's pretty cool. Jason Patton for sure. By the way, he's donated quite a bit of money, and the cool story about Jason is that he watched us every Wednesday night while he was in Iraq, deployed, which really cool, man. Thank you for your service,
Yeah, I
Jason.
remember that. When you went to-
But yeah, so I mean, I'm reading everybody's saying Oklahoma doesn't pay up for all these other stuff, and Devon Mitchell didn't get to Oklahoma for free. So I mean, Oklahoma is paying and they're playing the game. The donors have figured out that NIL is part of it. And I think there was some reluctancy, not through the OU administration or anything. I think there was reluctancy across the fan base of just how do we combat this versus these other programs. And now you see Oklahoma has two NIL collectives that they feel comfortable with Crimson and Cream, and I can never remember the other one. This is a charity one. What's it called, Travis?
Yeah, it's like the Sooner Charitable Fund or something
Yes,
like that.
whatever.
It's the
Well,
one that's run by the university, by people that these donors trust.
Yeah, they trust them. Here's the money. You give it to whoever you want to give it to.
And that's what the big deal was it's not this random third party situation
right.
that we're
They wanted to go into the players if they're going to give them money. Yep.
They're like, I'd rather write the check to the guy that I've been writing my checks to for my suite, that I've been writing my checks to for my donation. I know that guy. That guy always takes good care of me. And even if it's not directly being written to him, it's somebody that they trust.
Correct. Yeah. And that's been the biggest difference literally across the NIL front for Oklahoma is trust and accountability. But to Williams Nwaneri, I think we got to cover that. So Parker talked to some people, and I guess it's pretty legit on the grounding. I think people are kind of sick, and it's not grounding is kind of a bad term. I think people around him are over the recruiting, just done. If they didn't have so much money wrapped up into the visit to Oregon, it wouldn't have taken place. As a matter of fact, the mom didn't want to go. She still didn't want to go, but they had already spent all this money. So they're like, you got to go. Don't want you to go, but you got to go. Because there was really no point in, I think, the way his people are thinking, what's the point of going to Oregon if you're really not going to go there? Now, Oregon could come out and just, that's why I'm warning you guys, Oregon come out and do what they do, right? But Oklahoma they've taken some haymakers from Tennessee here, right? And they were up against the ropes and they came out swinging, right? Chavis and all them came out swinging. Then Georgia came and they came out swinging against them. Now Missouri, and they're just swinging back and forth with Missouri. And I think Oklahoma's laying a lot harder haymakers right now than Missouri is, but it's probably a little closer than fans want to believe it is. But at the end of the day, you have to look back at, okay, Oklahoma has, if not number one, the number two NIL package for him. And it's going to be really hard to beat. Nike could do it and Phil Knight could do it if they really, really, really wanted to, but they would have to throw loads of money at the kid. And that would be just a red flag instantly with the family, I believe, because they're Nigerian upbringing, very disciplinary. There's a lot more to life in living a good life in their culture than football, and money. So that would probably turn them off a little bit. Number two is you look at Oklahoma. Okay, PJ Adebore's dad is the Nigerian prince of Kansas City. That means a great deal to obviously the Nwaneris and everybody else of Nigerian descent in the Kansas City metro. They're a big family there. PJ and Williams are close, very close. PJ and Caden Green, very close. His other really good friend and the guy that lines up directly next to him every Friday night, Kamari Moore, just committed to Oklahoma. And there's a really good chance his other best friend is in Isaiah Mosey is heavy leaning towards Oklahoma and could be done by the middle of September, October-ish, if we were to guess. So when you line up all those things, it's really, really hard. And then you add the fact that Drinkowitz may not even make it through half of the season before he's canned.
Yeah, that's my thing. He's a lame duck coach. I mean, you can talk about staying home and whatnot, but we saw it with Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy and stuff. Like, if you don't know who the coach is going to be, even Gentry didn't sign right away. He wanted to wait and see. And he was brought home in OU pajamas from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you've got a coach that's not going to be there and Drink is on the hot seat. So it's like, I mean, the tea leaves are there.
So everything leans towards Oklahoma, but in recruiting, nothing is a certainty. That is something I like to harp with. And everybody kind of scoffs at the grounding. I'm like, you realize that we're talking about 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-old kids, right?
Yeah.
Kids. Like kids. They don't look it, but they are. They're kids. At the end of the day, they have to answer to mommy and daddy and coaches. And guess what? Jamar Mosey was on boat with him not going to Oklahoma. Not because he doesn't want him at Oklahoma or anything like that. It's because the kid needed to knock down a peg and needed to be disciplined. We're not going to get into details of why or anything like that, but it was taken care of the way they thought it needed taken care of. And then the mom and the coach met, according to Parker. If you want to read it, you can go to ouinsider.com. He does a way better job than I do explaining it. It's free right now. There you go, plug, right? It's free until September 2nd. Sign up now, free till September 2nd. And it's totally worth it. There's so much information on there.
It's only free if you like this video, though. So you forgot
there you
that.
go. Like the video and subscribe to JP and Trav. There you go. But yeah, the mom and Coach Mosey met last night with Williams, talked it over, and told him, you got to make a decision. Like, we got to start focusing on these 25 guys and getting them pushed and getting them. You need to lead those guys. Lead those guys. Show them how to handle this recruitment correctly. So we're done playing games and all that type of stuff. So they've come up, it sounds like August 7th. And if things work in Oklahoma's favor like they have been, it sounds like it could be OU. So I still like my pick to Oklahoma. I do. I hope that explanation was good enough for everybody.
Now, I've missed a ton. I'm sorry I've been in and out with craziness. Brandon, did you get a chance to speak about Party at the Palace at all, and just everything lining up for this weekend?
We haven't even talked about that. That's ironic, right? Oh, by the way, people are saying there on the chat, yeah, if you want to go to OU Insider and sign up and get those 2 months for free, or to September 2nd, excuse me, to free, it's the promo code is P as in party, A as in at, T as in the, P as in palace 23. PATP 23. That's the promo code. All right.
Go.
Yep. Yeah, the Party in the Palace. Let me pull up the visit list that I got done the other day and make sure that we get it correctly for you guys. Oh man. Sorry, it's taking me for just a second to. Okay, here we go. So they're going to have a lot of its commits that are going to be there. But you're going to have the Michael Boganowskis of the world that are going to be there. You're going to have Grant Bricks, Joshua Sosa. You're going to have QB targets and obviously Eli Bowen's going to be there. You're going to have QB targets like Trevor Jackson, Brennan, trying to pronounce Zerbrug. Brennan Zerbrug is going to be there. Michael Patterson McDonald, Danny Okoye is going to be there. Devin Jordan. So I'm trying to name Andy Bass, some of the guys that aren't committed that are going to be there. Liam Evans, Bergen Kaiser. Yeah, that's about it. Everybody else is committed. And so it's actually a really good thing that it's like that. So the majority of your guys are committed. They're going to have a lot of peer recruiting done. And that's what you look for there. Yeah, it stinks that David Stone's not going to be there. Yeah, it stinks that Jaden Jackson can't come in and help recruit because that's a big name in Oklahoma's class. But Devon Mitchell's going to be there. Michael Hawkins is going to be there. Obviously, Eugene Brooks, who just committed to Oklahoma, is flying in from California. That's big. Isaiah Autry out of Mississippi. Obviously, he's a legacy, being that Marcus Dupree's his uncle. Wyatt Gilmore is coming in. Dozie Ezekama, Michael Hawkins, Jaden Hardy, Zion Kearney. Like, there's just so many of Oklahoma's big names. Of the 11 4-stars committed, I think the only one that's not going to be there is Jaden Jackson. So that helps. And something tells me, I have no proof of this at all. None. But something tells me Eli Bowen is the name to watch, because this is an OU Texas battle, which is weird, right? Oh, and I didn't even name, I'm sorry. Zena Amozalu. I didn't even put Zena Amozalu on the list. Wow. I missed him. I don't know why I didn't put him on the list, but I know he's going to be there. Zena Amozalu is another guy that.
That's why it's free right now, people.
Yep. So
Well,
it's free right now. It's free. Go check it out. Yeah, but Peyton or Eli Bowen, it just feels like things are going to start working in Oklahoma's favor. But it's got to be on his own terms. Has to be on his own terms. And that's the way he's always wanted. He didn't want people to just assume he's going to Oklahoma. Well, now it's people are like, is he going to Oklahoma? Like, is this a sure thing? Like, what's going on here? Texas has done a really good job recruiting him, but can you see him playing against his brother? It's one thing with, and this I want to make clear that it's one thing with Zena Amozalu and obviously Zeta, who's an offensive lineman at Texas. They're 2 years apart. When Zena gets to Texas, assuming he commits to Texas, let's assume that. I know y'all don't want to assume that, but let's assume that. He would only have 1 year with his brother. Whereas he could have 2 potentially, whereas Eli could have 2 or 3 with his brother, depending on how long Peyton stayed in Norman. When you look at it through that type of lens, it's a lot different. So that's why it seems like it would be harder to get him to go to Texas than it would Zena to go to Oklahoma, just because of that. Plus, Zena and Zeta's sister goes to Houston. So it's not like the family's like, you have to go here because that person's there. That's not what it is. It's they're letting him make a decision. And Zena is really close with Devon Mitchell. He's really close with Michael Hawkins. He's really close with Nigel Smith, right? Like these things factor into decisions. So I'm not saying he's going to end up at Oklahoma. If I put in a future cast, that's when you know where I stand. But it's interesting it's taken that long. And I think he's going to be a September announcement. I don't know that for a fact, but there's a lot of buzz that could be taking place. So, or early October. So if it's an early October announcement, Oklahoma needs to take care of business in Dallas. Because if they do, that's a good way to
winner gets Mosaloo.
Yeah, there you go. Or Danny Okoye, because Texas is in that too. Tennessee and Texas. And I think this is really big for Oklahoma to make sure Okoye really, really has a good time. Because they've been creeping up and catching up and playing catch up this whole time. But Chavis has just been, moving the barriers out of the way one by one, piece by piece, and really building a strong relationship there. And I think it could all culminate to Oklahoma not only being a player for Okoye, but being the leader after Party in the Palace. And I think that's what we know that's what Oklahoma's striving to do.
I'll take it. Get some questions in. We're at an hour 15. It's coming up on midnight for old JP right there. He's on the he's on Eastern time, so I know it's getting late for him. But anything else? Any closing remarks, JP? I know you were fighting for your life, for a while. But JP, you got any last thoughts?
Yeah, again, guys, sorry about being in and out so much. I thought I was going to be out at a certain time, but you're working with different people you don't normally work with. It can get frustrating. Anyways, I'm sure Trav and Brandon had a great conversation. I'm gonna.
It was just me talking, dude. Trust me. I babbled forever today. Sorry.
No,
Perfect.
We love that. That's why we have you on, because you got all the great deets and everything. And so, nah, man. I mean, biggest thing I wanted to get to is Party at the Palace, obviously, and then we do have fall camp coming up, and so just one last question, and we don't have to dive into it too much, but one last question for you, Brandon. Who are two guys, one on offense, one on defense, that you're looking to have a breakout camp for the Sooners?
Ooh. So on defense, I will go with. That's a good question. You know what? I'm going to say Dejon Terry. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to say Dejon Terry. You know what? I'm just going to tell you this. I think I'm going to give you a position. I think it's going to be the interior defensive line. I
hope so.
Dejon Terry. I think Jonah Laulu. I think Grayson Halton. I think Kelvin Gilliam, if he stays healthy. Obviously, Jordan Kelly. Like, they're deep at that position, and they understand what's being asked of them now. There is some confidence inside the Switzer Center that position could end up being a strength for Oklahoma when it's all said and done this year. And if that's the case, Sooner fans are going to be smiling because they haven't seen that be a strength at Oklahoma. I guess you could say that it was in 2020 with Winfrey and all those guys, but it hasn't been a consistent strength for Oklahoma. I think 2019 it was a strength, right? I would think so, with Gallimore and Redmond. Yeah, I think that was.
Yeah.
19 and 20 it was a strength, but after that, nah, it's fallen off. So they did not live up to their hype in 21 with a very, very talented Winfrey and Redmond interior defensive line. And I think they have a chance to this year. I think that's the group I would kind of watch during the fall. I think the real litmus test is going to be during the season, but if you start to hear positive buzz from that, because these coaches don't say positive buzz very lightly. Like, they're very, like, if you suck, you suck. So they call it out. It's crazy. But offensively, I don't know if you would call it a breakout. I'm going to say Gavin Sawchuk. I think he is going to have a hell of a year. I really do. Arguably the fastest kid on the team. Now, Gentry Williams and Jaden Rowe would argue that, but that dude can blaze. Yeah, he holds a
60-meter record.
60-meter record, national 60-meter, indoor 60-meter record. Dude can fly.
I'm going to hit these last two real quick. We've had people asking, give me quick updates on Bussy and McKinley.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. McKinley, I didn't look.
Bussy, we have to assume Texas A&M until he's not.
Yeah, he's A&M.
So one of those, if somehow we pull off a miracle down the stretch or on signing day or whatever, just be happy about it. But Bussy is A&M bound. And talk, I guess, latest on McKinley. I know there were some rumors about a day being moved up. I know LSU is behind. We've seen everything with either Ohio State and Texas and all these people. What do you think about McKinley? And then that'll wrap it up for us.
Yeah, it sounds like McKinley's going to go to LSU this weekend. At least that's the word. And this would be, I think, the first time he's visited Oklahoma or LSU since the new coach has been hired. I'll say this. I think they're trying to give the in-state school a chance, but there's a lot of ground that needs made up. A lot that needs made up with Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. A lot. I think Oklahoma's right there. But I've said this over and over. Like, look, I believe Oklahoma's right there, if not the leader right now. But we're talking about a leader leading for a kid that the school that is right down the street from him did not have a defensive line coach for like 6 months. And they finally got it after spring. And now he's building a relationship with them, whether that's a good relationship, whether people around McKinley are buying that relationship or feeling comfortable with it. I don't know that matters all that much. What matters at the end might be, guess what? He's only 45 minutes away from home. And that's going to be tough to beat. Getting a kid out of Louisiana is tough, tough, tough. So you can sit there and be positive about it, but be realistically positive about it and know that this is far from a sure thing. Coach Bates has to get him back on campus for a few games this year to really solidify that for Oklahoma. And if that doesn't take place, you can guarantee LSU is going to be able to. They're 45 minutes to an hour from his house. So there's a lot of Oklahoma leaning on their culture. The fact that Mama is very religious, faith-driven mom. The fact that the soul mission really appeals to them. The fact that the culture at Oklahoma and the focus on the academics and how well the program has started to perform GPA-wise really appeals to her and Dominic. So I think you've got to keep, latching on to those positives and not try to negative recruit against LSU and say, well, that guy didn't do much where he came from. You don't really like him. LSU's culture isn't what you're looking for. It doesn't fit what we do. Blah, 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 blah. It's high-level SEC recruiting. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. If you're not willing to go through the ups and downs of the roller coaster recruitment, don't follow that one because I think it's going to. I think he wants to end the recruitment early, and this may be him saying, you know what, I don't want to wait till January. I'm going to go visit LSU right now. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. I got these other schools I really like. So I think that's right now. He's told the Under Armour camp that the Under Armour game that he's going to announce with them on like January 3rd or something like that. But there's a lot of buzz that it could be a September, October announcement as well. So like he's ready to be done with it. Doesn't like recruiting. Doesn't fit his personality. And those type of guys tend to favor the Oklahomas of the world because the flashy guys usually like A&M and Texas and LSU. But it's hard. I haven't put a pick in because the kid's only an hour from Baton Rouge. Like that is why, as much as all the positives I hear, I'm just like, ooh, can't do that one. That's a little too much for me. So
right. And I think one thing that we need to understand is we take a lot of stuff for granted, right? Like we just had a 5-star commit to us and people are like, well, he's not going to have an offensive line to run behind. Guys, all right, yes, and then we'll get our offensive lineman. If David Stone commits, it's going to be, well, he's from Oklahoma. I mean, that's a layup for Bates. He should be able to close that no matter what. Oh, Nwaneri, number 1 player in the country according to On3. Oh, well, his coach played for OU. That should be a slam dunk. If we don't get McKinley, then we're just back at square one. We people can't talk themselves into never being satisfied with a haul.
That's fair, but that comes because they're blue blood.
No, I get that, but what I'm saying is you're not going to get absolutely everybody. If you
No.
get 2 5-stars and a bunch of 4-stars on the defensive line, but you miss out on Dominic McKinley, you can't be like, I knew it.
I honestly think if they miss on Dominic and they land Stone and Nwaneri, or just one of those two, I think Oklahoma fans will be like, haven't done that in a while. We're good. Let's go grab Nigel Smith.
Not some of these cats.
I say the exact opposite.
No, I think there's going to be some that are going to be pissed off that they didn't win every battle. I get it. Those people are delusional as hell. Like,
Yep.
if you have a defensive line haul of Wyatt Gilmore, I think Oklahoma's going to end up with Stone and Nwaneri. Like, don't sit there and say I'm saying they're not. So,
right.
One disclaimer there. If they end up with Wyatt Gilmore, Williams Nwaneri, Nigel Smith, and let's say Danny Okoye, if you bitch about that, you haven't paid attention to OU defensive line recruiting over the years, because that's never been done. And let's just say they miss out on a lot of their top guys, but they land Nwaneri, Wyatt Gilmore, and David Stone, and Jaden Jackson. And you're going to be okay with that. And we're like, yeah, I got 2 5-stars and a 4-star and a high-level 3-star. That's okay. That's a really good haul still. So I guess my point is that you're already building the talent. Like, the talent on the defensive line is way better than when they showed up, 24 months ago? It's so much better. So much better. Look at
18 months ago.
18 months ago. Yeah, so much better. The depth at defensive end is insanely talented. It is night and day. That room is night and day compared to what it was last year during the season. The defensive tackle is too. You've kind of got additions by subtraction because you move Jonah Laulu, who is a slow defensive end, but guess what? He's a fast-footed defensive tackle now.
Right.
And he weighs 290 pounds. So there's a lot of give and take you have to look at, but they got to prove it on the field. I think first and foremost, once they prove it on the field, I think that'll ease a lot of people's minds. If Oklahoma comes out in the first 3 games and they're dominant like they're supposed to be on defense, I think a lot of people will go, okay, this is much better than what we saw last year.
I don't think they will, because they'll be like, oh, well, of course, it's Arkansas State, Tulsa, and SMU. We should be dominant.
If they hold SMU to
SMU's got to go
less, if they hold SMU to 20 points or less, the defense is pretty salty.
Right. Well,
because SMU is going to put some points up on you now.
It is after midnight on the East Coast, after midnight for old Indy Sooner. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Quick prayers for the Mrs. Venables, Julie Venables, diagnosed with cancer surgery today down in New Orleans. Hopefully they caught it early. So prayers up for her. I know that I know KREF had tweeted it out. Somebody brought it up on the text line today. I think some of the message boards are talking about it. Pinking out for the home opener.
That'd be really cool.
All of us will.
I think October would be kind of the cool time to do it, right? During Breast Cancer Month.
All 3 of us will keep you guys up. If there is something official, we'll push it out as much as we can. But until then, any last words, gentlemen?
No, just keep praying for Miss Julie Venables. I think the family's positive right now. They feel like, there's a lot of positives there, I guess, with the family. It's the best way I can say it. You expect the Venables to be battlers, and the good thing is like they're going to do everything they can to make sure that things get righted. So, but I think the power of prayer and positive thoughts is probably best. Right. It's the most powerful thing you can do. So keep doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just definitely, to be honest, I hadn't even heard that. So definitely prayers up for them and their family. I know Sooner Nation is going to be big about having his back. I'm sure players will too.
Could be a rallying cry too for Sooner Nation and everybody. Yep,
Absolutely.
I agree.
As annoying as Sooner Nation can be about some recruits, we can sure rally now. So I'm
Right.
sure that we'll see some good things from them. But now, appreciate everybody that came out tonight. Thanks for hanging with us, and thanks to Brandon for coming and dropping him in and talking. We appreciate you a lot. Y'all be on the tune, or excuse me, y'all be on the look next week. We'll be back Thursday night, 9 p.m. Central Time next week, and looking forward to fall camp, and the season's right around the corner. So, Trav, if you don't got anything else, man, we'll head out.
Nah, appreciate you guys. Boomer.
See ya.